Worship Him in all that you do. Worship Him. God's gonna see you through. Worship Him in the beauty of His holiness. Worship Him. Worship Him. Worship Him in all that you do. Worship Him. He's gonna see you through. Worship Him in the beauty of His holiness.
Welcome to Releasing the Pain on IntellectualRadio.com with me, your host, Barbara Henry, and our beautiful co-host, Miss
Laura Jordan.
Welcome today. We're so glad you tuned in today. Today we're going to do things a little differently. Me and Laura both agree that we're not going to have our grace segment as well as our 5 W's of Black History. We have a very special guest, and because of the severity of the topic, we're going to give the whole time to our guest to speak about what she needs to speak about. So it's a very important issue. We're going to talk about mental illness. We're going to talk about suicide prevention, and a lot of other things on top of that. So take a break. We'll be right back with our guests on IntellectualRadio.com.
Oh yeah, Lord, you're worthy. Lord, you're awesome. Worship Him in all that you do. Worship Him. God's gonna see you through. Worship Him in the beauty of His holiness. Worship Him. Worship Him. Worship Him in all that you do. Worship Him. He's gonna see you through. Worship Him in the beauty of His holiness. Worship Him. Worship Him. Worship Him in all that you do. Worship Him. He's gonna see you through. Worship Him in the beauty of His holiness. Worship Him. Worship Him. For I know that Lord deserves all the praise, and I know if you praise Him, He will let your blessings flow. Worship Him in the beauty of His holiness. Worship Him. Worship Him. The adversary tried to steal what you had, but with praise and worship, the Lord came in on your behalf. With hands held high and your knees bowed down, I worship the one true living God.
Welcome back to Releasing the Pain on IntellectualRadio.com with me, your host, Barbara Henry, and our beautiful co-host, Miss Laura Jordan. And we have our guest, Miss Elizabeth Gerald, who's joining us today. Welcome. Thank you for coming. We're so glad you're here. She's here to share her story. And I'm just going to give you the floor because your story. But we're going to start with your daughter, Marcy. Could you tell us a little bit about her?
Marcy was a 15-year-old outgoing teenage girl. She was an honor roll student. She was a rainbow girl. She took dance classes. She used to volunteer with the churches, and tutoring, and she just did a lot. She had dreams of going to Harvard Law. She wanted to be a lawyer after high school and wanted to go to Harvard. She just, I don't know. She was very smart, beautiful, and had everything going on for her.
Yes.
And all that changed one day, and she was actually beaten and sexually assaulted at gunpoint. And the assault was so bad till she couldn't even walk for a couple of weeks. Her ovaries and uterus were so inflamed and swollen. And it really spiraled, and she just kind of went down after that. She just was not the same. And she did take counseling with the Laney Foundation and Dr. Matheson. And, she would still smile and be happy and everything, for us. But deep inside, she was still in a lot of pain. And it was just, the assault was just too much.
Did they catch the perpetrator?
Oh, they got him right away.
Okay.
They did the kit, and they knew exactly who he was. They went and got him.
Did she know him?
He was, I used to do foster care.
Okay.
And he kind of used to hang out with my foster kids, and he had just got out of prison himself, and he was already in the system, so they knew exactly where to go get him at, and they got him right away.
Okay.
He did get him.
And how old was your daughter when she...
When he assaulted her, she was 14.
14.
She was 14 in 8th grade, and he was 20, I think about 26 or 27. I'm not sure what exact ages, but I know. And my daughter, she weighed maybe 115 at the most, and he was 200 and some pounds, so he was like twice her size. But as we were started, to procrastinate and go to court, he had threatened her that he was going to have some GDs or something come beat us up, and which caused her to have a lot of fears too. So the school had actually started, for the remainder of her 8th grade year, she actually homeschooled. And as the first, when we was beginning to go into court, he looked at her or mean-mugged her or something. And when she came home that day, she had attempted suicide. But my son happened to see her, and we got her to the hospital in time. And after that, that's when we started with the Laney Foundation. And
that's where counseling was.
Yeah, Dr.
I was going to say that's when counseling began after her first attempt.
She was seeing somebody, but it wasn't as it was like more like a therapy type thing.
Okay.
And it wasn't, she was just seeing
intense.
like a therapist.
Okay.
After the suicide, she actually, Dr. Summer Matheson took her on, and she's an actual doctor. That's not a regular therapist.
Okay.
And so she
is a psychiatrist?
Yes.
Okay. So that's when medication came into play. Was she taking medication?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so and Dr. Matheson is awesome. I will say that she's a very good doctor.
So prior to her seeing the doctor, the psychiatrist, she was not on any medication after the assault?
For pain and stuff.
For pain, but not
for nothing for psych.
Depression or anything like that. Okay.
Because she was just getting regular therapy.
Okay.
And there's I guess a difference.
Well, they kind of normally do like hand in hand. So you have your psychiatrist and you also have your therapist.
Right.
Because you have to deal with the issues at hand, and then the medication is to kind of help guide you through those situations.
But Dr. Matheson decided to just personally take Marcy on herself because of the fact Marcy, she just loved her, and she was just, she just took her. Dr. Matheson actually wasn't taking any more patients on. And she took Marcy on herself because she was just referring people to just regular therapy and to another doctor for medicine. And she just cleared her record actually for Marcy.
Okay.
And so that speaks in itself. So
how often did she meet with the doctor?
Once a week.
Once a week, okay.
Once a week. And we met with Dr. Matheson once a week, and we'd be there for maybe a couple of hours.
Okay.
So did she have sessions with you and?
We did family. Like she would do Marcy first and then family, or sometimes family first or then Marcy. It varied. And then like whatever she had coming up, if she had something, for the whole, like if she had some kind of get together or something, she would invite Martha to all the little things she had. And so the Laney Foundation is really a good agency to go to.
Okay. So you were pleased with the services.
Yeah.
I really like you saw Marcy start to improve.
Yeah, she did. And like I said, when it comes to mental illness, and sometimes you can't really. There's no special pill a person can take.
Yeah.
But the thing is with them, they can tell you whatever they want you to know.
Okay.
And that's what it is. They can be smiling and grinning with you and happy, and they can be in a lot of pain on the inside and just don't want you to know. And that's what a lot of people do. A lot of people are walking around with pain, but you look at them and they just happy and smiling. You wouldn't even know it.
That's true.
And that's what it was with Marcy. And she was just happy and, told us everybody what we wanted to hear. So, and you know what I'm saying, it's pretty much with her. So after the first attempt, the court services did get advocates, so she wouldn't have to come back because it was just too much. So after that, she started at HF her freshman year. She was fine at first, but then she would still have like anxiety attacks and stuff because of the boys, and it was just so traumatic. She just didn't like. She was, just freeze up and everything, and I don't know. It was just too much, and that's the second time she tried to attempt it because, comfortable being around boys looking at her, trying to talk to her, hey, you're cute or whatever else. And it just made her very uncomfortable. And we were able to get her to the hospital again that time. And she started with Dr. Matheson, and then she also seen from Grand Prairie Services, a lady would come by the house. Grand Prairie Services is another mental health.
Okay.
And that was a therapist. So she had Dr. Matheson as her doctor.
Okay.
And then she had the therapist from Grand Prairie Services. So she was getting it at home and at with Dr. Matheson. And then what HF actually did was put her in a therapeutic school in Naperville called The Mansion. And so she got therapy there, and she had to actually qualify to go there because you have to have straight A's, you have to be honor roll, or they won't take you, even though it's a therapeutic school. It's really hard to get into. So she still managed to keep her grades up. She was an AP student.
Okay.
So she was really good. She's a straight A's always. She had a high GPA score and everything. So,
wow.
Yeah. And then that's why they were going to actually try to get her on a program where she would do high school halftime and go to Governor State to start getting extra credits in for her to go to Harvard because she would have made it. That's just how smart she was.
Absolutely. She had to have been, especially if she was in the AP program.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So did she have friends that helped to support her at the time? Just wondering.
After the assault, she didn't want to tell anybody. So I did tell a few of her friends' parents so they would know, but none of her actual friends know. She might have told one or two people, but she really didn't want, that to really come out. She just didn't really want to talk about it. The school knew because they had, the police department knew, and a couple of her friends' parents that I thought that she's pretty close enough, and I figured to tell them, so they, she's over there just keeping an eye on her. But as far as a lot of the kids, nobody really knew that she was going through there, and she, put on a big facade for them too. She would, smile and talk to them. And what she did was she started isolating herself from a lot of them too, though. Because like if her friends were like, hey, you want to come out, go to the park or do something, she would always say, well, my mom wants me to clean up or make up some kind of excuse not to go. And then, she would just like, tell me not to say nothing or whatever else. So, because she didn't want to be in the house.
Okay.
So she's kind of bonded with me closer and started pulling away from her friends because she didn't want them to know.
Isolation is one of the first signs of depression. When people start to withdraw.
Right, and she did not want to hang out
from
with
what they
friends.
would normally do. That's
but she bonded with me more, and we had already had a great relationship, because she is my only daughter. whenever you seen me, you seen her, and everybody in the neighborhood. Oh, sorry, everybody in the neighborhood knew it, because we were really close to be mother and daughter and everything. So it just I did what I could, and the doctors did what they could, the therapists did what they could, and it was just only so much we could do. But this year alone has been a pretty stressful year because I had lost my sister to cancer, and then I lost a nephew to actually gun violence. And
So did all these incidents occur prior to Marcy committing suicide?
Right. It's like back to back, and it was just too much on her. And like I said, from January to July, it's like my sister, my nephew, my auntie, it was just too much.
And you were actually in the process of burying your aunt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was like a couple of days before she actually, or a friend of hers.
Yeah, died.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
A friend of who died?
A friend of Marcy's died.
Okay.
And
a friend of Marcy's died during the time that you were about to bury your
it was the day
aunt?
my auntie's died. Yep. It was like, that's why I said back to back. This has been a stressful year.
She was burying her aunt.
The
day of the funeral, a friend of her daughter passed away. And then the next day.
Yep. It was just too much. And what Marcy,
was it a tragic death with her friend?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she can't really discuss, but
Okay.
it was a tragic death.
Okay, it
with
was a
friend.
tragic death. Okay.
Her friend died on the 18th, and on the 19th, they had a lot of the kids around the neighborhood had went to like a barbecue or like a bonfire type thing or something to just kind of, I guess
Reflect.
and
On that
just
friend's
chill
death,
and everything. And Marcy came home it had to be around maybe 10:30, 11. And I asked her, was she okay? And did she need anything? And she said no. And I said, are you hungry? And she said no. And she said she had ate barbecue with her friends and everything. So she went upstairs, and then she yelled downstairs, and she said, Mom, would you run me, make me a milk bath with the lavender,
The lavender oil?
Yeah.
Lavender oil, because it helps to relax you.
Right. And so I put that in a tub for her, and I made her bath, and then she said, okay. And I said, you sure let me make you nothing to eat or do anything before I go back downstairs? And she said, no, go ahead. So I went back downstairs, and I actually just laid across the couch because I had been doing laundry up and down the stairs. And it had to be around midnight, between 12, maybe 12:30 or so. She came downstairs and laid on me like she always is. And she said, I love you, Mommy. And I said, I love you too, baby. And she just laid there, and, I held her because we went to sleep. And it was around 6 a.m. Monday morning, which is July 20th. I said, Marcy, get up. And she wouldn't wake up. So I did it again. I said, Marcy, get up. And I couldn't wake her up. And I sat her up, and I jumped up, and I said, Marcy, get up. And then I started screaming for my son, and I said, please come help me. I can't wake her up. So he got halfway down the stairs, and he looked at her, and she was slumped over. He said, Mom, call 911 now. And, I called 911, and I'm like, I can't wake my daughter if there's something wrong with her. They got to my house within 2 minutes. The police officer jumped off the car and ran, and I said, please come help me. He ran in, and he laid her on the floor and started CPR. The ambulance was right behind him. They come running in, and then they took over from him, and I was in the way, so he kind of pulled me back out the way, and they were working her in the house, and I heard the paramedics said, we got to hurry up and get her to the hospital. So I'm still in I just threw on my house shoes, and I ran out and jumped in the ambulance right behind them. They put her in the back, and I got in the front seat, and they worked her in the ambulance for a while, and then the other guy came and got in, and we took off, and we got to the hospital. The doctor and the nurses and all, they were actually standing outside waiting on us, and the nurse grabbed me and said, let them work on her. So I said, okay. She took me, and there's a bench like right by the emergency room door, because they took her straight back that way, and she took me around the hospital way. And they worked on her, and a few minutes later she said, you need to start calling your family. And I said, why? What's wrong with Marcy? Because I just wasn't thinking my child was dead. I'm just thinking, what the world's going on? She says, I don't know. The doctor just wants you to call your family. And I said, well, I don't have my phone numbers. I just have my gown and my house shoes on. So she said, write some numbers down, and we'll call them. And that's what happened. I wrote down my sister, my niece's number, and she called them and she came back and said, your family's on your way. And I said, well, what's going on with Marcy? And she says, well, let me go see what the doctor's saying. I'll come right back. And then maybe a few minutes later, the doctor, and it was a third person that came. And at the time, I didn't know it was a chaplain. They took me to a private room and they said, the doctor sat down. His exact words was, this is the part of my job I really hate. And I was like, well, what's wrong with my daughter? I mean, is she in a coma? Did she need surgery? And he told me she was gone. She didn't make it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said they tried everything they could. They said she didn't even have a heartbeat anymore. And it was like I was in the twilight zone. I could hear them, but it's like I have got to be dreaming. This cannot be really real. And I said, well, I need to see her. So the nurse said, let us clean up and then we'll take you to the back. The nurse went and I guess they cleaned her up and they brought me back there where she was at. And she was laying on, she had the little white cover thing on her and she still had the tube in her mouth where I guess they were trying to pump her stomach or something. I'm not sure. And they said I couldn't touch her because she had to have a full autopsy still. And I said, okay. And it was just, it didn't seem real because she was just laying there sleeping though. She just looked like Marcy just sleeping. And you know, what nothing else nobody could do. And my sister and them got there quick and everybody was just like, literally was in disbelief. It just didn't seem real to nobody. And the nurse came and said that they had called the coroners and when they came, they would be there, you know, to pick her up. And they got there maybe no more than 25 minutes and they told us we had to leave out. And I didn't want them to take her. I said, no, don't take her. And they said he got to take her. And we seen them put her in they brought this cart thing in there and had like a little black suitcase type bag thing on there. And I seen them slide her over and put her on there. He put some kind of tag around her toe. He wrote something down on the note then. He tied a tag around her toe and he put it in a suitcase. And when he zipped it up, I'm like, don't zip her up in that. And, you know, they grabbed me and he took her. They went that way and then they made us go that way. And it just didn't seem real. And then I had to go home and tell my son that she didn't make it. And he was just like,
right.
Oh,
that's what he did. And, you know, her friends, you know, my neighbors, a couple of my neighbors work at the hospital and I think they started letting people know. And I told a couple of my neighbors and then, you know, as it was getting around, her friends banging on the door with Miss Gerald and they're literally falling out of my house like, no, you just gotta be joking. And their parents is sitting there, you know, upset and angry and didn't know what to think and was hurting and everybody was, it just didn't, it was like, you know, what happened and, you know, everybody took it really hard. It really did. Everybody took it hard. But we pulled together and my neighbors were really, you know, helpful and my family and we pulled together and it was just the whole ordeal just didn't seem real. And I think it was hard watching her go on the ground because I stood there until they got her down there and then they told us we had to leave before they put the dirt on her. And
So when did they inform you that it was suicide?
It actually took 90 days for them to tell me she died of what's the stuff called tramadol intoxication. They said I guess they're so overcrowded in the morgue that, you know, it takes time now for them to actually tell people with their child unless it's like a gunshot or something. But it took 90 days. I found out October 20th, the 90th day, the third month, that it was Lord have mercy, tramadol intoxication. But we pretty much already knew that she had took her life because she had, you know what I'm saying? We had already knew it and we just didn't know how.
Right.
I'm sorry, what is tramadol intoxication?
It's tramadol is pain medicine.
Okay.
And what she did was she took I guess a
An
lethal dose.
overdose.
Mm-hmm.
And that medication was
And it
given to
made
her
her-
when
it-
she
pain.
was raped, correct?
Mhm.
She was using that for pain.
And I guess by it being a pain medicine, you know, sometimes they make you drowsy. So what it did is just knocked her out. She went to sleep and she just died in her sleep. And I tell people when I first had her, you know, I'm the first person she peed on and I'm the last person she peed on because she actually peed, you know, on me as she was dying. And I didn't even know it. I thought maybe the puppy had jumped up there and did something. And my child literally died in my arms. And that's something I'll never get over as long as I live. That's just something you never get over. And since she's died, I've been doing a few other, a couple things to try to keep her name, her legacy alive. I can't let her name just go in vain. I've started the Marcy John A. Gerald movement, and with that, what I do is, if the youth need like counseling or something, I've had a couple of people from Grand Prairie Services said they'll help me with that. We're going to get a building, and if the youth is homeless, because we have a lot of homeless teens in Chicago, and not just even in certain suburbs too, there are homeless teens. Try to get them into the building, and if they need like diploma, GED, life skills, mentoring, job training, whatever, try to help them with that. Because all that does come under mental illness, because even like wards of the state, once they're 18, they just kind of age them out. And a lot of times they may have bipolar or some sort of schizophrenic or something, and they're not getting any medicine or anything. A lot of times they have different types of depression, and they're just out there homeless, and then they start, committing crimes because, they're hungry or food, or they're just out there angry, what I'm saying, because of what they went through in the system and stuff. So all that's under depression.
So what you did after what happened to your daughter is kind of take this to help other people. And so you're starting a program or a movement,
to help
help other people who deal with mental illness,
and suicide, and try to prevent suicide. Because what people fail to realize is that suicide and mental illness is higher than people think in the African American community. And what the thing is with our community, we don't talk about it. It's for some reasons, I guess people are worried about people being judged. Since I've started this, I've had people from all over the world reaching out to me, telling me their stories of being molested by relatives. One lady told me she had been molested by her grandmother's boyfriend, and she had been going through stuff, and she was contemplating suicide. And I've met other people that actually tried it and didn't succeed. And I've met people that have lost kids to suicide, husbands to suicide, wives to suicide, brothers and sisters. It's really big, and it's nationwide.
Yeah, I think they say, isn't it like the third killer between the ages of 15 to 24, behind cancer and heart disease.
Yeah,
ages 15 to 24.
Yep.
And so in our community, you were saying, like, often we don't talk about it because of the shame, or the stigma that comes along with
and a lot of times people will say, go to church, or ain't nothing wrong with you, or we'll pray and get the devil about you. And everything ain't the devil, and you can't just sit down and say we're for to pray the depression out you. You got to get some kind of help, and stop being ashamed, and stop being embarrassed or worried about what somebody else gonna say and think. Because I'm quite sure everybody on this planet got somebody with some sort of mental illness in their family. A lot of people have somebody that's committed suicide or has contemplated.
Know of someone. Yeah.
And the thing is, I've met people that's actually had loved ones that committed suicide, and they will say it was an accident or natural causes because they didn't want the neighbors to know, or they didn't want the friends or the church people to know. They were ashamed to come out and tell the truth.
And often they're grieving themselves, and they need counseling or therapy, and they never get the help they need. And often, a lot of times in our community, with alcoholism, drug abuse, a lot of those things are what we would call a crutch, or a method of getting past or dealing with the depression, or hiding or camouflaging what's really going on. So I think a lot of times we're never even diagnosed because we never even seek the help, because there are a lot of things that are going on with us.
And people are ashamed.
Definitely.
And I've been going around spreading suicide awareness and mental illness, trying to get help. And, I tell people to reach out to me, and if I can help them, I can. If I know of other resources in their area, I try to do that. And one of the other bigger things I'm trying to do is I'm actually trying to get a bill passed in my daughter's name. I want the guy who sexually assaulted her to be charged with her death. And I've talked to senators, they agree. I've talked to my legislature, they agree. I've actually talked to the state's attorneys, and they agree. But there was nothing in place. So they told me I have to work on that and have to have stuff drafted up. I feel like if you cause a person to take their life, whether it's assault, it could be bullying, taunting, domestic violence, or whatever, you should be charged with that, because it's a lot of it. I was watching, I think it's the ID channel, the one that Tamara Hall's on. They had an episode where a 15-year-old girl was on the internet talking to, she thought it was another 15-year-old girl, but it's actually a 60-something-year-old man in Minnesota. And he made a suicide pact with her because he got off on young kids killing themselves. The girl actually drowned because she's in Canada somewhere, but she actually put on her ice skates because she said that she knew where the water was thin is, and she would skate and she would just drown and freeze to death and make it look like an accident. And he was she thought that her friend, the person she was on the internet with, was going to die the next day. When the police seen her computer and they found out who the person was, it was a 60-something-year-old man with a family. And come to find out, he just get off on doing stuff like that. Isn't that terrible? And there's nothing in place. So he didn't get charged with her death because there's nothing in place.
Did they charge him with anything?
I think he did 18 months or something for some kind of computer crime or something. But that's it. Okay. Because there was nothing in place. And now, and they and she was saying how the family wanted him to be charged with their child's death because it's his fault. He wanted to talk to her into doing it. And they don't tell him how many other kids he didn't talk to doing it.
Right.
So we got to get something in place for this because there's a lot of kids going to different things. Then you got kids that's being bullied. I was talking to a lady that worked for the Chicago Public Schools, and she said that that's big and that it's really big with kids being bullied and jumped on and stuff because they may not have the $300 shoes or certain clothes that's out nowadays. So it's really important that we get something in place.
Yeah. Well, children have always been kind of cruel. Bullying has been going on for a very long time. I think now we're just bringing light to it, but even when I was coming up, the teasing, the criticizing, those things kind of mess with your ego or your self-esteem as a young person. You grew up with a lot of issues because of it, and I think I don't know, a lot of teenagers are beginning to take their lives because of it.
Right.
Things are changing.
I know.
I'm not sure.
It's another guy who did the actual suicide prevention walk with me. He told me his story. His son hung himself in their house because he was being bullied. And I don't know, it has something to do with a girl. He was texting her or something. They got into an argument on texting. And I think young kids have a saying, go kill yourself now.
Right.
And I think that's what she told him. And he actually hung himself. And the next day, they were getting ready for breakfast, and he's hanging. They look in his room, and he's sitting there hanging.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's a very, suicide and mental illness, those are very touchy subjects, and people, like you said, they kind of shy away from them, and we don't like to talk about it. And because we don't talk about it, I think it's increasing in our community because we're kind of trying to hide from it and pretend that it's not what it is. If your child comes home and they say they're not doing well or they're sad or their behavior is changing, we kind of, okay, well, they're just going through something, or shake yourself out of it, or you'll be fine. In actuality, they need somebody to reach out to and speak to.
And then I think a lot of kids are turning to drugs and drinking too.
That's exactly what's happening.
The master pain too.
Definitely. I think adults are doing that as well in our community. And because we're not dealing with that, like you talked about before, the crime, all of this is tied into a lot of things that's happening in our community because we're not getting the help that we need.
Right.
So, it's depression. I myself deal with depression and anxiety disorder, so I know exactly how that feels. You feel alone.
Yes.
No matter how many times people tell you that we're with you and we understand you, you really feel alone because it's you who has to deal with that. And it's you who has to live with that. And often you get depressed about the fact that this is something that's with you and you can't get rid of it.
Right.
And I've learned over time that not trying to get rid of it, but learn how to manage my anxiety and live within it because it's a part of me. But because we're so shameful, we want to get rid of it. So you don't talk about it. And I think it's killing us.
It is. It really is.
Even if it's not physically killing us, it's mentally, emotionally killing us.
Right.
It's killing our community. It's killing.
I was going to say it's killing our community. Yeah. Just staying silent about it. You know, you're staying in that darkness.
Exactly.
You know, and you're not discussing the things that are bothering you because you were afraid of the negative stigma that's placed on it. I mean, let's face it, in the African American community, we're like, oh, just stop acting crazy.
Exactly.
Girl, ain't nothing wrong with you. You know, and we do a lot of that, you know, and not realizing that mental illness is real.
Right.
You know, it is really a disease. And if you talk about it, you know, there's some help out there perhaps for you.
Right.
You know, through medication, through therapy.
Right.
You know, but the worst thing we can do is keep it in the dark. You know, and that's what we do. We keep it in the dark. So I think that this show is important. You know, really thank you for sharing, you know, with us, because it's sad, you know, in terms of what happened to Marcy, you know, what she went through. And I commend you for being able to be here and talk about this, you know, and I hope that what has happened, you know, to Marcy definitely does not go in vain.
No, it's not.
You know, and that we will help someone else along the way, you know, and her death will help someone else. And I know you said that you're trying to get a law, you know, passed. Have you decided what you were going to call that law?
Oh, it'll be Marcy's Law.
Call Marcy's Law.
Yep.
Yeah. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I mean, because I believe that it's wonderful that you have not, you know, it's sad what has happened, but it's wonderful that you didn't go into a closet somewhere and just, and, you know, sit there and let yourself,
you know what, though?
You know, be deep in depression.
Marcy's energy, because she wouldn't have wanted me to just sit around and feel sorry for myself. And, you know, my son motivates me too. He's on a, hey, Mom, you got to keep it moving. You got to do this. You got to get it out there. And, you know, when I had people telling me that they went home and loved their kids more because of what they heard, I've had people tell me they actually stopped, turned around, and gave their kids hugs and kisses.
Because you never know. And like you said, you know, she put on a facade.
She did.
She was happy. She smiled. You know, she did what people expected her to do. You know, and it was not unusual for her to come down and, you know, give you a hug and say, Mom, I love you, you know, and lay there with you. That was normal. Right. You didn't expect anything different from that.
Nope.
You know, and so by all means, you know, we need to love our children. But like I said, it's just I am so happy that you're sharing.
As the African American community, we need to learn to be kind and love one another.
Yeah. That's true.
And be kind to one another.
Because you don't know what people are going through.
And stop judging them. And I know I was on a Facebook page, I think it's Women of the World or something, and they had put the something about Erica from Mary about, I guess she was getting backlash about because she didn't believe in homosexuality. And all I said was, you know, who are we to judge? Live and let live. And all the Christians came at me, and she has a right, and Revelation said this and that and the other. And I said, well, ma'am, you do know Matthew also say about judging. You know, we're not supposed to judge. And, you know, just learn to, if they're not bothering you, then don't bother them. Live and let live. Because you just never know. You never know what's going on in somebody's life. You don't know their story, and everybody has some sort of story.
That's true. That's true. And the Bible also, because we had talked about this before, the biggest commandment is to love.
Exactly.
That's the main commandment. We all have our views about how we feel about whatever, but it takes backseat to love.
Exactly.
And to actually consider that somebody has a story,
right?
And you don't know what they're going through and what their struggle is. So to judge them, it's not your job.
Exactly, and that's what we do.
That's God's job.
We judge each other, bring each other down, and clown each other, and you know, we are the only race that really don't come together and unite like everybody else do. And we gotta start.
That's true.
Yeah, because we're losing more of our youth. You know, we hear about all the homicides because nobody wants to tell about the suicides. But a lot of you'd be surprised how many of our youth have actually committed suicide.
That's true.
You know, I met another lady that child was actually shot themselves in Linwood, Illinois, but they lied and made it seem like it was an accident because they didn't want the neighbors to know. And that's something.
And I think because, you know, the people that are left behind, they talked about this at the Out of Darkness walk that you attended as well. There's this guilt that follow them, and they feel as if they're to blame. So if you admit to the fact that they committed suicide, it's like you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So a lot of times parents feel that guilt, and they kind of shy away from telling people. I know Ryan, is his name Ryan from
Ryan
he was saying his mother they kind of had the same issue. They were dealing with the fact that, you know, this is something I could have done differently. And so you go through a blame, and I think because of that, people shy away from telling people that this is exactly what happened. And then some people feel like it's going to be a trickle down effect with suicide too. Once kids started hearing about other kids committing suicide, others tend to follow. So a lot of times people don't like to share that information because of that as well. So a lot of things that keep us from talking about it, from mental illness to suicide, but we don't realize we're doing more damage than good. Even when Laura was talking and you were talking about the state of our community and different things that are occurring in our community, it's like a lot of the things that we do with our behavior, we don't think it's, how could I put it? We think it's okay.
Right.
From the yelling to the cussing each other out to the fighting, we become so used to it that it's become our norm. And we don't see that as being really something that maybe a mental illness is behind.
Exactly.
Because it's our norm. We're used to cussing each other out, let's fight, and then the next day we're okay.
Right.
You know, and that's become a part of our lifestyle when it's really unhealthy.
Exactly.
And there's probably some other underlying issues there that need to be addressed. And it probably could just be addressed through therapy. But because we think it's normal, whatever that is, or a part of everyday life, we don't even try to get to the bottom of it.
Exactly.
And so, and because of, you know, it's a lot of things that's going on in our community that we don't address.
Right. And when it comes to suicide, I know a lot of people do probably blame themselves, but you can't sit up and just blame yourself forever because the kids, they put on that. Even if it's not kids, the adults too, because it's not all kids. It's adults, you know, teenagers, whatever. They're smiling, they're happy. You know what I'm saying? They already.
There are no signs there.
Right. They already have it planned that they're going to do it. They just don't come out and, hey, I'm going to go hang myself today. You know, because if they tell you, they know you can stop them.
You can stop.
Yeah. So they make sure they're normal as possible. My daughter's last words was, "Mommy, I love you." We did that all the time. And I thank God that me and her had the relationship that she said, "Mommy, I love you," and gave me a hug and a kiss versus arguing. And, you know, if we would have been in you got some people that are in bad terms with their kids, and, you know, something happens and then that really eats you up. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm glad that, you know, she did love me, and we had good enough relationship that she still came and said, "I love you, Mommy." You know,
so peaceful.
Yeah. You know.
And prior to Marcy, you know, being raped, like you said, she was a normal child. She didn't have any signs of mental illness or
she was,
any
like
of
I
that?
said, high honor roll student. She was a rainbow girl, and she went to her meetings with them. She was a sweetheart for the DeMolays. She went to their meetings because my son's a DeMolay, so she went to their meetings.
These are dance groups. I'm sorry.
No, Rainbow Girls is a youth Eastern Star. When you're under 18, you can't be an Eastern Star. You're a Rainbow Girl. And then when you're 18, you convert over. And a DeMolay is actually a youth Mason. And then when you're 18, they're actually Masons. Oh, I'm sorry, Masons. So she was with them.
I should know that, but I don't.
Because you're not a youth, you probably don't know. But
no, my husband is a Mason, but I didn't know about all that.
Yeah, when you're under 18, that's what you call, and when you're over 18, you're actually Eastern Star or Mason. And so she was with them, and then she did take dance class downtown Chicago, and she was into that. She was into theater. I sent some pictures to her Facebook page. She had actually did an interview with a producer from NBC. They were trying to film something with some teens, and I'm not even sure what all that was about. But she has a lot of pictures that I sent to her when she met the girl from Jesse. I think her name was Debbie Ryan. She's actually met her. You know, so Marcy had a lot going for her.
She's very active.
Very active, you know. Mm-hmm. One of the ladies that's on my Facebook page, Nanette, she helps with a lot of non-for-profits and stuff. I met her through Marcy because she was having some kind of financial class, teaching people how to invest their monies and stuff. Okay. Marcy found out about that, and we went downtown Chicago every day because she wants to learn about how to invest her money.
Wow.
You know, Marcy would say, the thing is, Marcy said, before she buys some Jordans, she'd rather invest in Jordan and let him pay her.
Oh, wow.
So
she was only 14 thinking like that.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So, now, she was 11 when we met Lynette when we took the class.
She was 11 years old thinking like that.
Right. And then, so she had a lot going for her.
So she had a lot of hope for her future.
Oh, yeah. She wanted to be something. She wanted to go to Harvard Law and become something.
And that young man murdered her.
Yep.
That day.
Yep.
And her life changed.
That's a good way to put that, Barbara.
I've had people ask, say they hate that she couldn't have been strong enough to just get over it, but she was 14, and some grown women don't even get over that, let alone a child. She had never been beaten, she was still a virgin, so you can't even imagine. You know what I'm saying? And then being held at gunpoint too, and threat. It was just a lot.
And I think that's the sad part about mental illness or somebody experiencing a tragedy, and they just say, just get over it. Please, people, stop telling people to just get over it. I think that's the worst thing you could ever tell anybody that's been through a traumatic experience. Mm-hmm. It's offensive because it's implying that you don't want to get over it.
Right.
If you could, you would.
Exactly.
And that's something that people need to be mindful of. Be careful of saying, you may be somebody who can snap quickly back, and you think you can be, you snap quickly back into something, but some people, it takes a while.
Yeah. Right.
And you have to let people have their time, and you make sure you support them, but let them have their time. And I think it's really, that's like I said, I deal with anxiety and depression. I've also attempted suicide, and I had one person say to me once they came to visit me when I was actually institutionalized, like, we're gonna get you. Why are you here? Why are you doing this to yourself? I know it was out of ignorance because people don't know any better, but the thing is, nobody does this on purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
And because you can't see it physically doesn't mean that they're not ill. And I think that's where we get mixed up at. And if I could take it back, I wouldn't have anxiety or depression.
Right.
There's something that I never wanted to live with. It's something that came about for whatever reason. It is what it is.
Right.
And I deal with it. So I think we have to be careful with the words we choose.
Exactly.
Yeah. We definitely have to be careful with the words we choose. And so if something like rape is traumatic in itself, and then when it happens to a young woman who can't make sense of it, to say, get past it, that's asking way too much.
Yeah.
That's asking way too much. Yeah. So we have to be very careful.
Yep. Her story has been in we were on the Channel 9 news about 3 weeks ago. Her story's been in the Jet magazine, the newspapers. So I'm trying to get it out there.
And you're doing a great job. Like Laura said, we commend you on being able to do this.
Yeah.
So soon, because Marcy passed away July 20th, 2015.
Yep, this year.
And so
it's not even 6 months. Hasn't even been 6 months.
She'll be 16 years old in about 3 weeks. January 3rd is her birthday.
Her sweet 16. Wow. So, yeah. And so you're still, and we talked briefly before the show started, you're still receiving therapy as well as your son, because it's important when things like this happen. A lot of times, like I said, we like to kick it under the rug and just go on with our lives. It's important to get help.
Right.
Black people don't go to therapy. Look, it's time to stop put all this stuff aside.
Right.
Get the help you need. And so you and your son,
we see Dr. Pittman once a week. She comes to my house.
Yeah.
How old is your son?
17.
17. Okay. And he goes to Homewood Flossmoor. That's what that stands for, right? So he goes there also.
He's into sports, gymnastics, basketball.
Okay. And therapy is going for him well?
He sees Dr. Pittman at the house, and then they have some kind of program at Homewood Flossmoor too that he, like a peer group or something they got going on there. I forget. It's some kind of therapy program that he sees there too. Okay. So he gets support from them too. A lot of his friends came to the funeral. A lot of her friends were there, and they all took it. They A lot of his friends were pallbearers, and even her doctor, her pediatrician took the day off work and came to her funeral. There were people that I didn't even know. Literally, her funeral was so packed, and I was asking myself, do he know some of these people? He didn't even know them. So a lot of people actually cared, and
her story touched many. Mm-hmm. Yeah, touched many,
and it's still touching.
Exactly, and it's still touching
people. And the more you get it out there, like you said, the more you're changing lives.
Yeah, because I've had people from all over the world just reaching out to me, telling me the things they were going through, and and just really telling me their stories and everything.
And the more we talk about it, the more we heal. Mm-hmm. And the more we get to, especially when if you know somebody who has dealt with suicide or who attempted suicide, you get to understand it from their perspective and what they're feeling in that moment. So I think the more we talk about it, the more light we shed on it, and people can realize that you feel a certain way in that moment, but that moment will pass.
Right.
But at that moment, it's heavy.
Exactly.
Trust me, it's very heavy. But the important message is to get through to people that it's going to pass. It's going to take some time, but there's going to come a time where you're going to feel better. And I think it's important to allow people to grieve, give them their time, to deal with it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think one of the ways, and you can help me with this, I think that your healing is through telling the story.
Right.
And by you telling her story, Marcy's story, as well as your story, your family's story, you're helping others.
Right.
And to me that is so selfless. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Selfless. I feel like I'm lost with the word, but selfless.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
And that is selfless. And I believe that God is working with you because of that.
Yes, He is.
Because of that. What is grace again, Barbara?
God's love in spite of us, yet because of us.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's healing when you take your focus off you.
Exactly.
And put it on other people.
And it really makes me feel good. Like I said, when I'm talking to people and they're just telling me that they love their kids more and their stories and how I've been helping them and I impacted them. That's just the best feeling when I've helped somebody. It really is.
Yes, and that way Marcy's
death
is not in vain.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yes.
Death is not in vain.
Yes.
So truly, truly thankful for you coming to share your story. And I
appreciate you having me.
I pray that, and I believe that many people, because of this story, lives will be changed.
I hope so.
Yes.
How can people follow you on Facebook?
I'm on Facebook, Elizabeth Gerald, Gerald, and then it's the Marcy, Marcie, Janae, which is Jonea, Gerald, Gerald movement. So we're on Facebook, Elizabeth Gerald or the Marcy Janae Gerald movement.
Okay.
And so the law that you're trying to get passed, it's called the Marcy Law.
The Marcy
Law. That's what it's going to be called.
Yeah, the Marcy Law.
And so at this point, you have to draft what the law is going to look like. And so you have spoken, like you said, with state legislators.
And everybody agrees with me because there's too much going on. And actually, I'm the first person that's actually wanted to make a law like this. Isn't it something? Even out of all the suicides and people that's going through what I've gone through, nobody has actually came forward and said, hey, let's make this law. I'm the first person that's actually fighting to make the law. I'm the first person that's actually...
A lot of our laws that have come forth, there have been first. So why not you?
Right.
Why not?
And most of them come from moms.
Exactly.
They come from moms.
With a cause.
Okay. Yeah. Women definitely have always been the reason laws change.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and our children are often our catalysts for the change, and so through Marcy, I believe that this will definitely become a law. Yeah. Do you have a page that focus on that?
On the law?
On the law and what you're trying to do?
I don't have a page about the law. I just have her like a movement, and we update it. And as I talk to people, whatever I do, I update it on.
Okay, so that's within the movement. So you keep people abreast of how it's going. Okay.
Yep.
All right. We're gonna have to come back and share with us as it begins to move.
Yes.
Forward.
Yes. We're gonna keep in contact.
No. Yes.
Yes, and figure this thing out. So, I told her, as a symbol of this show is called Releasing the Pain, and as a symbol of releasing our pain, we actually cut the balloon and release something.
Okay.
In the air. I didn't get scissors, so we'll just cut it.
You know, so there is one thing that I want to say, Barbara. Okay. You know, as we're getting ready to release this pain, and this can tie into it, and I want people to think about this. And it's called. I was in church this past Sunday, and I went to Victory Apostolic, and Pastor Singleton is his name. And one of the things that he said that was just profound, and I think it ties into this, is that he said that when there is no faith in the future, there is no work in the present. You know, and that's powerful.
Yes, it is.
You know, and you have faith in the future.
Yes.
You're doing the work in the present. And that is by the grace of God. You know? Thank you.
Yeah.
I say thank you. I mean, I've been holding back tears for a while now, but thank you, you know, for sharing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, you go ahead. Sorry.
I think we just released something.
Yes, we did.
So this is up to you. So whatever you want to release today, you cut that balloon as a symbol of letting it go.
We're going to release the pain to people who buried their children. The love. Just right here.
It'll later hit Earl in the face, but it's released. Thank you for watching Releasing the Pain on IntellectualRadio.com. Until next week.
Yes, guys. Bye-bye.
In the beauty of His holiness, worship Him. Worship Him. For I know that Lord deserves all the praise, and I know if you praise Him, He will let your blessings flow.